Yeah, how's it going? Hanji, how are you doing, guys? What's been going on?
So, John, did you watch that documentary, the post office one? What happened?
Oh no, I stopped. Yeah, I didn't because yeah, I haven't had
Seb
time to watch
spoiled it.
it. Yeah, because as soon as I found out that it's not a good ending, I don't know why. In my heart, I was like, I don't want to watch it anymore.
Yeah, I get like that.
I
I
was like,
get like
I'm
that.
reading Mahabharata at the moment, and then I'm going to be watching that. I was like, I can't keep watching and reading stuff that has bad endings.
Have I seen anything? I finished off the I want to call it the Messi documentary, but it wasn't all about Messi.
Ah,
It was about the World Cup and how the game is bigger than um, just one person. But I also finished off David Beckham as well.
the ending is so good. I
David
teared up.
Beckham,
Yeah, I teared up at the end when he retired.
did you?
Spoiler alert: he retired.
I thought it was good, but yeah, it
No,
was
the
a
ending
bit.
is strong. The ending is strong because, like,
Yeah,
he was so passionate about the thing that he loved, and I felt like, will I ever be as passionate as that? And it was because he was like, football was his
Do you
life,
really think he was that passionate though?
genuinely. Because he's on the football field, and I don't know if it was drama or anything, but I don't know if you can cry on cue. But he was there in that moment. He knew it was his last game before retirement, and just he breaks out into
Yeah,
tears.
yeah. He's
It
thinking, man,
was
I'm not getting any of these peas anymore.
no, but then he went
that's
on to
exactly what he's thinking.
no, he went on to then manage a very successful American
Yeah. No, no,
football
maybe.
team.
Don't say very successful American soccer
Yeah,
team.
well,
America and
within the
soccer
context
just
of
don't go.
America,
Yeah, I
yeah,
get
yeah.
that.
Oh man.
But I'm not a massive football fan. But yeah, it was interesting. The bit about Alex Ferguson and
Yeah.
his relationship with Alex Ferguson was huge because
Father
I
figure, right?
find it was a father figure thing, but I also find that that's a very community based line, right? So somebody who's almost like an ustad, you know what I mean?
$100%.
If your ustad doesn't like a decision that you've made or something,
And Fergie
he
had influence over well, he definitely had an opinion on who David married or didn't marry, and at what stage he married and didn't
yeah,
marry. So definitely, yeah, I agree with you that Fergie was his ustad, guru, father figure, whatever. Huh?
definitely the relationship was one to explore and how Alex Ferguson didn't put him on the pitch at times, and it's almost sometimes your ustad may put that rukavat in your growth for your own personal reasons. I mean,
And it
you
might seem
can,
like a rukavut, but
yeah,
it's actually
Yeah,
building
yeah.
you as a character. Huh?
Actually, my brother-in-law was saying something yesterday that when he was at school, he used to ask a lot of questions. I think it was to his maths teacher. No, it was his physics teacher, and he would ask loads of questions. But in the exam, he got like terrible marks. And when he got terrible marks, and the teacher said to him that, "Oh, you're just good enough for asking questions. Like practically, you got nothing there."
I was trying to hold my laughter. That's proper bestie, isn't it? Like,
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
nothing going
proper,
on.
yeah, yeah, like you got nothing. And he says, I wanted to prove him wrong. And then for the remainder of the exams and stuff, he topped his class.
Sweet.
And even the teacher said, he went to the teacher and said, "Look, I'm not just for asking questions, I can do good." And the teacher's just looking at him like, "Well, yeah, I'm net positive for me."
it is definitely building a strong character. Just off the back of that, I think experience teaches you a lot more, and sometimes time can even teach, as I think all of us have learned. But we're going to talk about today the four stages of life that we've seen, according to some Gurbani that we've read, some Updesh that we've listened to by Sach Bashaji, Gatha.
Like, there are stages in life where, as a kid, all you're really interested in is play, and play helps you develop social skills.
Mm.
Um, and then, as you become a teenager, all you want to do is spend time with yourself, and try and understand who you are as an individual, how you fit into society. Life being the teacher that it is, you get ups and downs, and as you get to your 40s, you want to, 20s, 30s, 40s, you're looking at trying to settle down, have a family, and then when that happens, it's a complete priority shift. Before, you're prioritizing yourself and your personal development. Then when you have children, if you're fortunate to have children, it's a complete mind. Your priorities completely shift towards the well-being of your family. Then, um, But within the framework of Sikh philosophy, there are certain stages, right?
It's Guru Tegh Bahadur's Bani that I think I feel encapsulates it the most. Baal, Jawani or Birdhon, Teen Avastha Jan, Kahu Nanak Har Bhajan Ben, Birtha Sab Hi Man. Those that do not do bhajan, Sara Birtha Chala Janda, meaning everything's a waste. And what does that mean in essence? Like, obviously, I think it's quite clear what Sadhguru is trying to tell us, but why? Like, why is that related to the three phases of life in terms of your childhood, in terms of your Jawani, and in terms of your old age? And in Sadhguru Pratap Singh Upadesh, they talk about a book called Sar Kitabli. And it says that in there is written, Dharma Sarva Sukha Khan Jan Sab Ko Hitakari, Dharma Tare Budhaman Nirantar Chit Mujhari. And here it's essentially saying that the base of your life, of your happiness, your peace, you becoming intellectual, is dharam. And when we look at it, the whole reason why the gurus have come from Guru Nanak Dev Ji, if you look at the previous yogs we talk about, Bhagwan Krishna and Bhagwan Ram, why did they come? And I think Guru Gobind Singh Ji says, "Jab jab hod irishta apara, tab tab deh tarat avatara." When a dharam increases on earth, then to establish dharam, they come in physical form. And how I wanted to relate that, and I think the reason why here Sadhguruji was relating it to that is the basis of all of these things should be good actions, right? And what is positive action? And Sadhguruji says actually later on, it doesn't matter, like when we look at the example of Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, Taram het saka jin kiya sis diya par sir na diya, tilak janyu rakha prapataka kino bado kulu meh saka. That for the sake of others, they gave their head. For the sake of what? For the sake of Dharam. And then Sadhguruji goes on to say, what is the definition of a sadhu? And Sadhguru says it's not about somebody that wears a mala, not somebody that wears a bodhi, not somebody that wears a kirpan. Sadhguruji says very clearly that person, sadhanam nirmal tako karam. That person whose actions become bigger, their life, you can call them a sadhu. And Sadhguru says this is not about our external, what we're wearing. It's about those people that live that life. So Sadhguruji there is breaking the boundaries of mazhab there. And that's how I think Sadhguruji was relating it to in these stages of life. Each phase has a very specific purpose.
Before we go deeper into what Jawan Singh was saying, I think Asa touched on something similar to what I was reading up on this week. And it was, childhood is often viewed as a stage of innocence, a stage of wonder, a stage of creativity, a stage of you're not just learning everything, but you're completely immersed in everything. And I think that is probably the only time where you're completely immersed in anything. If you watch a kid, how it picks anything up for the first time, and it looks at it, and it might do something that might look strange to us. For example, if we see a small cardboard box, it might look at it and it might, try and sit on it thinking it's a chair or something. But we know it's not big enough because of all of our prior experience. The same way, I think what the child ingests around it and what it consumes by watching what the parents are doing, watching what the community is doing, and having those check marks and having those pointers and having those people who can really guide is really important in that sense. Because if you see a child going into the Gurdwara now, how does a 6-year-old child know that it needs to matha take when they come to the Gurdwara? Or how do they know they have to sit there for X amount of time in order for the program to finish or whatever? They know because they're learning from their surroundings, they're learning from their parents.
One of the funniest things I've seen whilst at the Gurdwara, and to your point about a kid is like a sponge and it will absorb things that it's seeing, hearing around it. One of the funniest things, when people are matha taking at the Gurdwara, normally the first thing that before the asan or before Maharaji's bead is normally the golak, right? And in Birmingham, we were quite conscious that Sometimes when you're trying to do Matha Tek, you want that visualization of Sadhguruji being there as you Matha Tek, and the Golak normally gets in the way of that visualization. So we made a conscious effort to move the Golak to one side. And what we saw happening in the next few weeks were children, instead of Matha taking straight to the asin, they'd turn to the Golak and Matha take the Golak.
That's too good, man.
Right, but I think in childhood, it's really, really important to kind of shape a future for your kids, because Virkji, for example, they have strong recollection of being told sakhis before they go to sleep, and that had a huge part on their growth and their progression in their life. If we look at Bhai Joga Singh Ji from Sadhguru Gobind Singh Ji Sakhi, telling a kid that, like, breaking the illusion early that it's not mum and dad or Santa who got you these gifts. These are from Satguru. These are from Akal Purakh. Jehde paise sanu mile hoye, the money that we've got, the money that we've earned, has come from Satguru. And feeding that into them or drilling that into them early. And so when Bhai Joga is asked by Sadhguru Gobind Singh Ji, "Tu kede Joga?" And Joga Singh Ji at a young age says, "Tere Joga." And Sadhguru Gobind Singh Ji in that beautiful interaction says, "Je tu mere joga, te fir main tere joga."
Guru tere joga, haan ji.
What does that mean? I've heard it so many times, but I don't know what that means.
I think yoga in that context means who is your support.
Yeah.
If what is your anchor? And Sadhguru is saying, if you have given yourself to me, then I will be your anchor.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And we see this a lot, right? When Sadhguruji asks kids, "Ki tu kedi beti hai, ja keda beta hai?" And like, I know, like, in retrospect is always, hindsight is always 2020, right? But I remember like standing with Juan Singh and be like, "Imagine if that kid had said, 'I'm yours,'" and that sort of thing. But if we drill that into kids as parents early, then it's a different mindset. And that language that we were talking about earlier, about being conscious of the language that we use so that we don't fall into ego traps, is important, right?
One thing to recognize there, if we go deeper into that Sakhi, why do you think Bhai Joga Singh Ji actually said that?
I don't actually know, but I'm assuming it was because of their upbringing.
Yeah, I think when I've read the Sakhi, it says a big element was their mum. The reason why I wanted to bring it back to Matama, like when we was growing up, when we didn't have any interest in Sikhi, we would be asleep, right? And my mum would sit next to us, na simran karna, and they would keep jal next to them. As we would wake up, they would give us the jal. And how many ardasaan they probably done ke sade bacche sahi paase lag jaan. So yeah, big up all of the matama out there that put their kids on this path. There's obviously Jawani when you're becoming an adolescent, and Sadhguruji says that in that age your full focus should be on gaining knowledge. And we see that actually in society now, that in terms of the way society is set up, within that age you should be going to school. But I think because of the amount of things we're exposed to now, there's a lot of distractions to that. Let's be honest, right? When you're in school, everybody's their hormones are going crazy, going awry, and it distracts you from your mood, which should be gaining knowledge, gaining vidya. And we know how many people get distracted from that. But Sadhguru is saying here that in our history, people would be sent to Gurukul. Gurukul is where you'd fully be focused on your studies. You would learn a variety of things. So you would learn like Rajniti, you would learn Shastra Vidya, you would learn how to do exercise, you would learn what should I eat, you'd build a strong body. You would learn all of the Dharma Granths. Essentially, we're saying that each phase has a very deep meaning, right? And how they relate to each other, right? You're a child and your childhood is based on the Gristi aspect, the Jawani aspect. The Jawani aspect is based on the creation of that child. So you need that. And then as you get older, you get into your old age, and that's also based, like there's a cycle there, right? And how they're all connected to each other. And I think what we're trying to get at is where there's these phases in your life where you look for a deeper meaning. And one thing that was definitely there for me was I started thinking, okay, so my parents have got married, they've had kids, I'm alive now, then I'm going to get married, I'm going to get a job, and then I'm going to have kids, and then they're going to go through all of this stuff that I've been through all over again, and then I'm going to get old and I'm going to go as the same as everybody else. And for me, I wasn't satisfied with that at all. Right? When I actually started thinking of it, it really dissatisfied me.
It's one of those existential questions, isn't it?
I've learned that word now. It's existential.
Existential. Yeah.
Existential.
I learned it as well. I was like, man, I've done my own bestie.
I think you're right. I think there's always an element of, and maybe it's our ego, where I know definitely I wanted to leave a mark. So I can relate to you, but then it was also like the upbringing element of it was hearing from my dad, ki janma janma di khediya, to become a sadhu, it's not like one lifetime and that's it, you become a sadhu. So it was always in the back of my mind, ki, you know, I think life just goes on. Nature just goes on, right? We are so minuscule in this vastness of the universe that I think for me, in looking at it holistically, we will make no difference whether we live, die, whatever we do in the vast span of the universe. It will make no difference.
I don't agree with you.
Yeah, neither do I.
I definitely think we can have a massive impact. I think that's what interests me about Sikhi, actually, is that it's about rising above this animalistic sense of yourself. I agree with you. Like when you look at it from an animal kingdom perspective, you're right. Like we go through that cycle. Really, what impact are we going to have, right? But I think Kavi Jeevan Singh, they had this one divan which is talking about who remains on this earth. And they used to say, Data te Bhagata Surma, Dinna Jagarinde. So they're saying that there's these elements. And I think that's kind of the angle I was trying to get at, is where we're talking about, especially Gristataram. Why does Guru Nanak Dev Ji promote it? And Satyapashi is saying that these sadhus, they have this aim that they want to become enlightened. They go to the forests and they essentially, for the ultimate dharam, which is to become a brahmgyani, for that dharam, they commit a dharam. Why? Because they're going to the forests and they're having the selfish aim of they want to become one with Parameshwar. But then they come back to the Gristis to ask for food. And Saguruji is pointing out their hypocrisy. And Saguruji says, Karavijarahe udasi, meaning within your house, become that sadhu. Your house is the forest. And I think Saguruji there is saying within Gristataram why it's so important. Like for me, going into marriage, I felt was like a massive thing. Just because of Sagu Pratap Singh Upadesh. Like before I got married, I sat with Subhas Lakhan Singh for like 3-4 hours asking for advice of like what is in terms of Guru Mata, what should you do in a marriage and what you shouldn't do. And even like Sant Satnam Singh would do the same. I don't even remember. So like they would sit down and be very like frank with us in terms of what you should and shouldn't do, and saying that is the foundation of society. Grist is the foundation of society, and if you wanted to, through your Grista Jivan, you could change society.
Yeah. And I want to disagree with your point as well, Ashab, because I think, why are we in 2024 still talking about Guru Nanak Dev Ji? Why are we in 2024 still talking about Krishna Bhagwan, who could have happened 3,500 years ago, whatever calculation it was? Their impact, okay, fine, they were Rabrup, I get that, but all the characters that came with them, they weren't necessary. Even the Dant or Chalo, they were Rabrup as well. But what stops you from thinking that you're Rabrup as well?
I want to look at this from a different lens.
Hit me.
Okay, I agree with you. There have been enlightened people who have come to this earth to propagate the truth so that we can be a civil society, and to be a society who can then elevate themselves to be altruistic, to give back, right? That's the ultimate aim in Sikh philosophy, is to be somebody that can be a positive change in the world. And then I read things like Jotu the Pava Sai Palikar, that this drama, this play, you've written it, right? Whatever is meant to happen will happen. If tomorrow Putin decides to press the big red button, and nuclear war starts, what was the point of everything?
I think that's where it comes from, is that what is all of this? And I was speaking to Sarpaji, and it was something I read in Sadhguru Vilas. And it's something that was quite new for me, is that it says that where did the universe come from? How did the universe come into creation? What is its purpose? And there it says that from one, according to Akal Purakh's will, ek to anek ho gaya. From one, it was multiplied. According to science, we know this is the case. Then it says from that oneness, and when it became anek, the first thing after anek, what was made was the Shuddh Sarup of Shakti. Right? So Shakti was created, and we see this in Jandi Diwar as well. Khanda pritham saaj gaye, jin sab se sarupaya. That from that Shakti, then this whole world has come into being. But then it says there that then the first thing that comes into play after Shakti is what? Homa. And this is one thing I didn't know. And kind of when I heard this, all these puzzle pieces came together in my mind. And both Anandaya. And you find it funny that Home bare padke Nand kyo aaya. It says there from Home the three elements were created. Rajogun, Satogun, and Tamogun. Rajogun means that nature that we have to want to lead, that nature that we have to want to gain wealth, that nature that we have to want to do something in our life. So maybe also that's that element that we're touching upon. The next element is Satogun, meaning the want to do truth, right? The want to be righteous, the want to be compassionate, the want to tell the truth. And then Tamogun is our nature, where we're Kam, Krodh, Lom, Mohankar, where we're doing negative, where we're not being compassionate, where we're telling lies, right? Where we're thinking of our own personal gain. It says that from these three, Brahma thinks that I want to understand the ant of you. Right? And then we see this in Japji Sahib, right? Ik sansari, ik pandari, ik laye di baan. Jiv te sapave, tive chalave, jiv hove furman. O vekhe, onna nadra na ave, bauta eovidan. Even the three devte, they can't see him. The one, the essence, right? So meaning, evi home the pathe khande, they're influenced by home. Brahma, through that element of home, he thinks, I want to create this srishti. Akalpur ne agya de diti. Okay, fine, you can create it. Brahma takes all the three elements, meaning takes Rajogun, Satogun, and Tamagun, and creates this world. Why? Because he wanted to understand the one. And everything is created. Then he realizes that to understand this, we need to create a tool to do that. Right? And through this massive evolution of creation, then the human mind comes. Right? So this is where we differ a little bit in terms of our creation theory. Then the human mind comes. Why? Just to understand that one. This is why in Gurbani it says, "Es dehi ko simre dev." That even the dev, they want this body because this is the tool to understand the one. Even they can't understand him. Yeah. And that's where this whole element of home is covering all of it. And even in Asadiwar it says, "Ho vich aya, ho vich gaya, ho vich jamya, ho vich mua." Later on it says home kar kar jant upaya. Even from home sara jant banya. And for me it like connected all of the dots of this is why we're here, is to connect to that one. This is the ultimate bliss. This is the ultimate understanding. And I think linking it back to all these stages of how these stages link to that ultimate aim. I know I went on a bit of a tangent there, but I hope it kind of answered it in terms of there's this element of me, and within that me, there's that home, right? Within that me, you're the Raja, right? Everything is according to me. And I think in that, even though the whole bigger picture is everything is going according to Akal Purukh's will, but there also is that element that you have Rajogun, Satogun, Tamogun inside of you. You have Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh inside of you. And you shape your reality. Guru Nanak Dev Ji isn't saying you don't have that, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't decide what we eat, right? But Sadhguru is saying remove that home, remove that illusion, and you will start seeing that actually but we haven't reached there yet, right? We're trying to get there. But
so to be clear, I mean, so what are we trying to connect to? Because there's nobody in the clouds.
Name of the
No, no, I
podcast.
genuinely,
Yeah.
let's open that up.
Handy. Yeah, we can open up. I think to finish that, Vichar, I think at the end of that salok, it says, Homme bujha tadar sujha.
Yeah.
Meaning, if once you understand Homer, you will understand his essence. It will open the doors of who he is. Then we say, who is he? Right? I think the perfect answer to that is Japsai, right? And it's like endless, right? It's endless. I think that's where the mind, you come to a standstill when you think of that question, right? It's like this thing that we can't fully comprehend.
When, as a kid, as a teenager, like, ego is the thing that you need to get rid of. I mean, we're talking about it in the same context, that ego is something to get rid of, but not really diving deeper into what ego actually is. Ego is such a multifaceted concept in that initially it's just pride. I'm better than you. I can do things better than you. There's nobody like me. But then you look at what makes you you, right? The way that I do my dari, the way that at the time of the star, my name, the people I associate with, the way that I talk, the things that I like, the things that I don't like, they all contribute to this perception of me. And that me is the ego. And an analogy that I really like is, imagine you've spent 25, 30 years building up, investing in a house, saving up money, physical labor. You've spent your hard earned time investing in a house, and you built it up from scratch, and you've decorated it. You bought furniture. You've created the perfect house that you want to live in. And then Guru Nanak Dev Ji comes along, knocks on your door, is like, knock it down. We don't need that. We don't need the ego, right? It's one of the hardest things to do, is once you've
Yeah.
established an identity, then to knock it down.
Is that what you were trying to get in terms of, in the overall sense, like that nihilistic kind of view? Is that what you were relating it to?
Ultimately, there is no use for my ego.
This is the same thing where we were talking about illusion, right? Once you actually believe that the illusion is true, and it's so easy. If you pinch yourself right now, you'll feel pain.
100%. And it was I had a dream last week about losing somebody really close to me, and I remember waking up like in a literal sweat, and like out of breath. And I woke up thinking, how crazy was I to believe in that dream when this is the real world? And then it occurred to me. So I say, are you sure that this is the real world?
I guess going back to Grist, where I was talking about, I think out of all of the stages, I think Grist is the most important.
Because it shows you a side of yourself that you don't necessarily think. Because all the way through your Javani, all the way through your youth, you think, look at me, man. I'm cool. I'm something. Then you get a wife. She shows you a side of yourself that you never comprehended. And there's two ways of dealing with that. There's one way is that, you think, no, you correct her and you say, no, I'm like this. But then what are you doing? You're not accepting that she might have a different perception of you. You have to talk things through. And then that's where I think communication is very key.
It was something I was reading this week, Sarab, and relating it exactly to your point, that marriage isn't for people who think they're perfect, because your partner is essentially a mirror. And if you're not ready to hear the truth about who you are to them, somebody that you love, somebody that you trust, then you're not ready for spiritual growth.
Yeah, I think Aristotle said something really cool. He goes, I was reading like a book which mentioned this line, so it's not paraphrasing what came out of that, but it says Aristotle's concept of eudaimonia, or flourishing, is pertinent here as individuals seek to live virtuously, just think about that, within a community and fulfill their potential. So how do we live virtuously within a community to fulfill a potential? The only way you're going to do it is as a team, right? And then as a team, it builds into a wider community, which then connects into society, which then connects into the human race eventually.
So I think there's two elements there, right? Is that one is about building each other up, right? And that and that's both ways, right? In the world and spiritually. I think Asapaji, we used to talk about this, right? The triangle, where especially in Sikhi, there's this triangle where on one side it's you, on the other side it's your wife, it's your ardangani, and at the top of that triangle is your values, is the guru, and you both need to be going in that one direction.
It was something you said last week, Juan, that making seva the core or the foundation of your relationship and your marriage is really, really important. And to your point about Aristotle, living virtuously and contributing to community, you can only really do that if you have that sense of community within your partnership, where you serve each other. Like that old saying, charity starts at home. In this instance, seva starts at home. So once you've gotten married, what's next?
I think Sahu Pratap Singh Ji mentions about creating quality santan, meaning creating quality children. I don't know, this kind of vidya is getting lost within the Sikh Panth now, but before I got married, Subhaji actually told me that when you want a child, you need to do it in a specific way. I'm not sure how many people know this actually, but they said that before you're going to try for a child, you should have done a shnan, you should have done 1 hour Naam Simran. They even told the time to do it during Amrita Vela. And so that positive, that you are taking a positive action, right? Whereas in Sadhguru Pratap Singh Ji's Upadesh, ਅਸੀਂ ਇਸ ਰੀਸ ਤੇ ਲੱਗੇ ਹੋਏ ਹਾਂ ਬਈ ਕਿਸ਼ਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੇ 5 ਬੱਚੇ ਹਨ, ਮੈਂ 6, ਜੇ ਨਾ ਕਰਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਸਵਾਦ ਨਹੀਂ। ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਦਾ ਕੋਈ ਖਿਆਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿ 6 ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਜੇ ਇੱਕੋ ਚਪੇੜ ਵੱਜ ਜਾਏ ਤਾਂ ਇੱਕੋ ਨਾਲ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਮਰ ਜਾਣ। Where Sadhguru is saying, here, you're creating all of these children. Have you even seen what the quality of your children are? Maybe even if you slap one of them, ਇੱਕ ਚਪੇੜ ਨਾਲ, like with one slap, they would die. So I think there's this element here of creating strong children, and what kind of goes into that. So one is obviously what you put into that, like what is your mindset at that time. There's a lot of examples in Dasam Granth as well, even when we look at Harnakash, that Harnakash, even though he's thinking negatively, he's still remembering Parmeshwar, and because he's remembering Parmeshwar, this is why Bhagat Prahlad comes into his household.
The last stage is old age. I mean, the last stage is really death, right? Up until then, sare jawan.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, we're all Baba Deep Singh.
It's the most critical stage, though, because that's when resentment and all of these negative feelings come about. You
think so?
I think that whole lead up
it can
to that
happen.
Point,
it can happen.
Yeah.
That people become very cynical,
point,
right?
Like look at Ravan, for example, and this is something that my parents were like. We had conversations about this. Ravan throughout his whole life, he was a very big bhagat, at the beginning, but then the focus of his life at now is what happened with Ramchandraji and Sita Mata, and that's the focal point of his life. But right at the end, when he's about to die, he says Ram, right, and that causes him to be mukt, liberated. And I think the same applies for our lives, where you could have spent your whole life living in appreciation, living in bhakti, living in devotion, but right at the last minute, you're like, well, it was all useless. What did I do? I didn't gain anything in life. And then that's the big ego trap. But the reason I mention that is because I've seen so many examples where you've got to a point where you're living a grihsti life, you're living a householder's life, and then you have certain maybe subconscious expectations on your children, and they don't turn out the way that you expected them to turn out. Maybe one has not become a doctor, maybe one's not married somebody that you approve of, and so it feels like life is no longer in your control, when it actually really never was anyway. But that expectation was there, that I will mold these kids to be perfect, right, in the way that I see the world. And when that doesn't happen, then resentment, and that can derail the whole journey, right? Where you were just meant to go with the flow. In
life, there's these things that are actually like poisonous plants, essentially, but in our mind, they're covered with khand livar, meaning that we thought they were sugar, right? And ik rahe de rah gaye, ik radi gaye ujad. some people die planting them, and some are ruined, harvesting and enjoying them. Meaning, some people are thinking that it's an enjoyment. Some people, in terms of trying to, it's like you're saying, trying to achieve some sense of ambition, they die trying. Meaning, like they never become satisfied. I think that's where it relates. I think where we talk about the transition from Grista Jivan to old age is it's like you're saying, you had all these expectations that I'll create these great children, they will become these these great people, and when you think you fall short on that, and it's like you're saying, if maybe this is where it goes back to what you were saying, where I think I'm kind of getting what you're trying to get at, is that what is the point? Where that's when it kind of makes sense to me, is that you had so much expectation that I wanted to create this legacy, and really, what was it all for? But I think the bit then where I think what you need to add there is there was an essence there that we missed. Right, which there was this ultimate essence that we missed out on in terms of this mess that we were trying to create.
But that's it. So where we started this podcast was Bal Jawani Arbir Pun Teen Avastha Jan. Well, what's the next line? Kaho Nanak har bhajan bin birtha sab hi man. The whole, it comes back to that. And if you take Bhagat Beacon, they say nano neer paye tankina paye kes dudwani ruda kant sabad nahi uchre ab kya kare purani. So what are you going to do now at the end? Essentially, he's saying that I've got a grey beard, I'm getting old, I'm getting weak, I'm frail. But what are you going to do at the end? I've got no, he's got no strength. It links to what you were saying a couple of weeks ago, Jawan Singh, where you were talking about, your mind needs to be strong, your physical body needs to be strong in order to partake in Nam Simran.
Oh, actually, you reminded me of something. Pandit was saying, there's a Gurbani talk about this as well, about essentially saying we think this, right, that we in our young age we'll make loads of money, in our Grist Jivan we'll create kids and do all of that stuff, then in our old age then we'll do Nam Simran. Pandit said, "Odo naam japna jado dand hi nahi rahe." Okay, what's the point?
What's incredible is, like, again, throughout this conversation, there is an underlying expectation that this is how things will turn out. After college, university, I'll get married. That's an expectation. After marriage, I'll have kids. That's an expectation. I try asking people that can't have kids or don't have kids, feeling like they're missing out on something, that they're feeling incomplete.
Well, imagine you're taught your whole life that within the Grista Jivan, this is the ultimate aim. And you feel like, oh, am I failing? Like, am I failing at life? How do you reconcile that? Actually, more and more, I'm understanding where Asu was coming from with what you were saying. Actually, in a sense,
don't you start hating
no,
life as well
not in
now.
that sense. No, not in that sense. I'm changing it a little bit. I'm flipping on its head. I think Asu, what you were trying to do was make a point. I don't think you fully believe that. You were just trying to bring that other angle into it.
Well,
but I'm seeing both angles.
But the beauty in that nihilistic view, I think Sikhi brings a beauty into that nihilistic view, in the sense that we believe in the concept of ascharaj, in wonderment. I don't think there's an exact translation in English, right? Amazement, wonderment, in awe of this creation. That I am insignificant in the sense that like in front of your drama, in front of your play, in front of your raza, in your hukam, there's nothing really that I can do. Other than to destroy my ego and to become one with you.
I think there's them both aspects, right? I think the element of spirituality you're touching upon is in terms of udas and vairag, right? And I think there's another aspect of it, which is chardikala. And I think within the day we're experiencing all things, right? Kabuhu jira ub chadata hai, kabuhu jaye pyale.
What's the translation of that?
Meaning that sometimes the soul, it soars high into the heavens or high into chardikala, and sometimes we go into the depths of despair or the depths of.
I think it's from a place of just complete I mean, I'm not saying it's coming from me, but it's that you've completely just surrendered. There's nothing left. Like I've knocked on so many doors that you're my last option.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think there's definitely that element of it. Like how much can you plan for the future when actually the recommendation is to stay in the present? And maybe this is where it relates to the Stoics, right? And that element of it. I think here there's two elements that have come out, and why I've really enjoyed this conversation is there's one element here which is about the essence, right? That don't forget that essence. And it reminds me of one of the Hukamnam during Guru Gobind Singh's time. The Sikh writes the Hukamnam. And in there it says, the uniqueness of a Singh is, to the world, it seems like he loves everybody so deeply, right? You would think he's the most connected to everybody. He's the person that's affected by more the most. But really, he's dead inside.
Yeah.
And balancing that, I think that's kind of the essence of what we're talking about, right? Is this these two elements, which one is dharam, right, which is performing something that is for their existential good, and the other element is is around connecting to the essence and not losing yourself, and not falling for this prabal maya.
Yeah, it's so true. I think on that note, let's wrap. But before we wrap, I'm going to mix it up a little bit. And I know you guys have got a fun fact, and we probably will touch upon it. But I want to ask you guys a question. We're talking about youth, we've talked about childhood, we've talked about marriage, we've talked about old age. What is the one lesson you wish you knew when you were younger? Just before you guys answer that question, I was speaking to someone at the Gurdwara on Saturday, and I wish somebody had said to me, start doing 10, 20 press-ups a day. It'll make you a better tabla player. And I said it to a kid, and I hope that kid goes away and starts smashing up the press-ups.
If I could go back and write a letter to myself, that's how I'm imagining it. Like I've received this letter from my future self, and I could receive this insight of something I figured out, or something I feel I figured out anyway, or something that made a sense of life. Is don't try and be something you're not, and don't be scared of reading about everything, right? Meaning listen to everything, read everything, and really then you'll feel connected to something. Because I grew up thinking the culture kind of being a brown person, being a Singh in the UK, I think that had a big impact on me. So I would want somebody to come to me and say, look, it's good to be a Singh.
That's a really nice one. My one, like you guys had really deep ones, but I was thinking of how could I benefit my health and then also somebody else's psychological health. And the example that came to mind, so I've recently discovered I'm lactose intolerant.
Oh.
And a result
Is
of
that
me
why
being
you were
lactose,
laughing?
yeah. And as a result of me being lactose intolerant, let's just say it's the gas I produce is quite toxic. Yeah.
Oh, man. The funny thing is, I know what you're talking about.
That's why I laugh.
That's why you're laughing.
I would tell myself, my younger self, to drink less milk, so that Juwan didn't have to mind his mouth.
Let's not go into that.
We're not going to end on that. We got to give our fun facts as well. Asa, what's your fun fact for this week?
My fun fact for this week is that I've forgotten it. Shit. Can you come back to me?
You always do this. This is just an Asa standard. Okay, we'll give you 30 seconds to Google John Singhi.
No. I've done my homework. I've got one. I've just forgotten it.
Oh man. This is the moment where I'm laughing, trying to think of a fact quickly, man.
Okay, you know what?
We start with Bazi.
Oh, okay. You're giving me time. Hang on. I need to watch the TikTok again.
Oh man!
Did you know?
That's
Did
brilliant.
you know?
That's too good, man. What did we know you about to for TikTok? Kind of. Yeah.
Did you know humans? Okay, no, seriously though. Did you know humans are the only animals to eat spicy food for enjoyment?
Really?
Yeah. There's no other animal.
So
that
what
does
do
it.
the other animals eat it for then?
No, they don't. We're
Oh.
the only species that eat spicy food.
Okay, Johan
Okay.
Singh, before we go off on a tangent, please give us your fact.
No, Baz, you're gonna have to go first. Let me Google something.
Okay, that's
quickly.
fine. So I got a question for you guys, as usual.
Oh,
Have you guys heard of wabi sabi?
Why do I think I have?
I'm just not making up words here, sir. Wabi sabi is the appreciation of beauty in imperfection. So it's an aesthetic concept in Japanese art. That's not everything needs to be symmetrical. Not everything needs to be aligned. And some things will deliberately be put off alignment just to make it imperfect.
my nose is wabi sabi.
No, I think that's just a
think mine
pagoda.
I think mine is as well, man. I'm really struggling. Like we've laughed so much. I think all my knowledge for this week is like escaping me.
Chalo. Good night, guys. We'll catch you guys next week.